Namaste everyone. I would like to start with a small prayer. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri Guru Namaha. Narayanam Namaskritya, Naran Chaiva Narottamam, Devim Saraswatim Vyasam, Tato Jayam Udhirayet. I am Sri Sairaj Kiran Nagbod, Director of Vishwavatika. Pranamas to Sri Dr. P. Sivaswaroop Garu, Speaker of the Day, and to all the enthusiasts who have joined us live on the Rishivatika YouTube channel today. Welcome to Dr. Vedavyas Memorial Online Lecture Series being conducted by International Institute of Vedic Sciences, Rishivatika, and promoted by Vedavyasa Bharati Trust, USKFI, and Yoga Brotherhood of America, with the blessings of our Guruji, Dr. Vedavyas. Today's talk is the 91st talk in the series. In today's topic, we would cover the aspects of chemistry and its spirit as seen in our ancient times as part of our Hindu culture. Our ancient rishis were ahead of their times in scientific research in various subjects like medicine, surgery, astronomy, mathematics, and chemistry. Then suddenly a vacuum got created in that research, and now we are recovering and sort of coming back to it slowly. We are trying to reconnect to our foundations and make the efforts to rise above. Dr. Sivaswaroop Garu will briefly talk on this topic, explaining the chemical advances, how this vacuum got created, and also share some of the ideas on visualizing topics of chemistry through Hinduism principles. First, I would like to briefly introduce Rishivatika. Rishivatika is a township with about 50 acres of land near Madanapalli in Chittoor district of Andhra Pradesh. It's also the campus for International Institute of Vedic Sciences, which has been established for the scientific and spiritual evolution of mankind. IVS focuses on research in various topics like Vedic education, Vedic sciences, promotion of Sanskrit, Ayurveda, planetary study, as well as in things like rural development, environment preservation, and green earth related projects. Rishwatika houses a Gurukul school with about 50 students and also a Goshala with about 30 cows. I would like to now introduce the speaker of the day. Uh, Dr. Sivaswaroop Garu is presently the regional director of Indira Gandhi National Open University Regional Center at Nagpur. He received PhD in chemistry from Andhra University with Best Thesis Award, followed by postdoctoral work at University of Hyderabad. He has completed 9 postgraduate and diplomas in different subjects like ethics, IPR, distance education, and so on. He is a fellow of the Royal Society of Chemistry, FRSC, London, a prestigious honor for chemists across the globe. He is also a member of the American Chemical Society. He has received several awards, addressed more than 700 conferences, workshops, seminars, and published 34 international journals in chemistry, solid state chemistry, uh, distance education, and ethical issues. He has also published three books. I would now hand over the conversation to Sivaswaroop. Please start the conversation.
Thank you very much. Namaskar. Sai Garu, Padmaji Garu, and Giridhar Garu, and all the listeners. It's a great pleasure for me to be part of this session, make a presentation in this Vedavyasa Memorial Online Lecture Series. We remember the Vedavyasa Garu every day because the puja books we use in our house, they are by him and by the trust. So we are in daily touch with him. And today I will speak a little bit on spirit of Hinduism in chemistry. At the outset, I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to share some of my ideas. It is like I believe Hinduism is vast, deep, no one knows the depth. chemistry is a vast subject, and like a blind person trying to describe an elephant, I also try to make a small attempt in this direction. And I have divided my presentation into 5 parts. Let us have a brief introduction, how the religion and science, they are interconnected and what is the international scenario. And then about Hinduism. Because many times we are far away from the real facts. So we have some misconceptions also. And then ancient Hindu chemistry. Professor Prafulla Chandra Ray wrote a book in 1904 or so, more than 100 years back. And that was the most authentic book till date about connecting the present day chemistry to the ancient Hindus. And then there was a sudden vacuum created. So we forgot what happened, what was our ancestors and what they contributed. And now after that, I will try to connect some of the Hindu principles through chemistry eye. Let us see. For Hinduism, the Mahatma Gandhi has said, Hinduism is a relentless pursuit of truth. And for truth, science and religions, they both are in pursuit of truth, but in different paths. French Nobel laureate Romain Rolland said, religious faith, in the case of Hindus, never been allowed to counter scientific laws. You can see the connectivity explained between Hinduism and science by a foreign Nobel laureate. And for science and religion, it was connected even in medieval part also. Isaac Newton, he said, it is part of natural philosophy to discuss God and relationship to the world. So there was no separation at that time during medieval period. But slowly it has changed. And now within the culture of science, it would be considered rather weird to admit that they had religious belief, religious interest. Being in science as a scientist, if I say that I belong to so and so religion, others will look at him or her in a different look. Even I should share, when I told to some of my friends that I am going to talk, they were exclaimed to see whether I will speak on this topic. So, well, of course, it is an international pattern. No need to take it separately. There are different models to relate science with religion. And one such model is conflict view, coexistence view, and complementarity view. And in the conflict view, it proposes science and religion are enemies, and science will dominate and religion will vanish. Those who think religion is not a valid thing and it will go off, they think that science is supreme and it will lead everywhere. And in the coexistence view, it proposes science and religion are two independent systems. Each one is right and justified in its own domain, independent and unrelated to each other, and have nothing to contribute to each other. The coexistence view says both are different. They are like a parallel line of a train rail, so that they never meet. They are parallel only. And many of the scientists, including Indian scientists, they hold this view. Albert Einstein, he said, everyone who is seriously involved in this pursuit of science becomes convinced that a spirit is manifest in the laws of the universe. He said, this is also a medieval output. The third one is the complementarity view, which is a middle path between conflict and coexistence views. So they think that Albert Einstein had said, religion without science is blind and science without religion is lame. When it is said, Pope John Paul, he said, science can purify religion from superstition and religion can purify science from false absolutes. Fridge of Capra in his The Tale of Physics stated, science does not need religion and religion does not need science, but humans need both. They may be independent, but humans, where is the conjunction point for both, they need both. We see various countries, various religions, various individuals, they have their own choice among the above three. Let us see some cases like we all know Galileo, he proposed the the heliocentric theory in 1610. He proposed that Earth was the center, Sun was the center, and Earth and all other planets they are moving around. But that was not accepted by the then religious heads, and he was prosecuted from 1610 to 1633 for his heliocentrism, which is against the biblical geocentric theory. And he was ordered to abstain from holding, teaching, or defending heliocentric ideas. And he was kept under house arrest until his death in 1642. You can see the picture of the Galileo before the attending the office. So it shows the conflict between religion and the science. And in Hinduism, we can see the Vedas are regarded as storehouses of ancient knowledge, and Rishis are spiritual scientists. They were scientists of higher order and invented many things. So it is said they were staying far away from the towns and villages and the kingdoms. In forests, they used to have their ashrams and have their gurukuls. They used to study different aspects in a deep studies they made. But the most important point is they did not use this knowledge for personal benefit, but used it to create a perfect society in which human beings can live in comfort and harmony with each other and with nature. So this was the thinking of the Hindu Rishis, who thought not only the human beings should live in comfort, but with every other creature in the nature. When we wake up in Hindu culture, we start with Samudra Vasane Devi, Parvatasthana Mandale, Vishnupatni Namastubhyam, Padasparsam Kshamaswami. We, with this shloka, we touch our feet to the earth. We treat earth as mother, and we, as if we feet touches anyone, we say sorry. Like that, we start our day with this, and we see God in every creature, every animate and inanimate thing of the nature. That's why even in our mantras also we say Prithvi Shanti, Aushadha Shanti, and all these Shantis we read in the mantras. But with this excellent and outstanding contributions, but suddenly a vacuum was created with the British rule. The British colonial rule has colonized the Indian mind also by successfully disconnecting us from our past. Thus, the age-old relation between Hinduism and science has weakened. Should not say it has disappeared, but it has weakened very much. Only very few are connecting them. But if you see in the Western countries, it is continuing, and there are organizations like International Society for Science and Religion. It was established in 2002 for the promotion of education through interdisciplinary learning and research in the fields of science and religion conducted in an international and multi-faith context. I am also associate member of this organization, and it discusses the various religions and how they are connected to the science. And because the European countries, they continued, there was no vacuum created for them. So their tradition of religion and science, they are continuing, like studying chemistry as a Christian. There was a leaflet, and it gives introduction to some challenges associated with the being a Christian chemist. They say Robert Boyle, 17th century, often described as father of modern chemistry, Michael Faraday, Charles Coulson, they are just three well-known and influential chemists who were also committed Christians and saw their scientific works as an act of worship. To say in the medieval India, they are more interested into spirits and identified, he thought that we can speak to the spirits through this he expected. So similarly, there were so much overlapping of chemistry and the science and the religion. It is continued. There is a great scope for exploring the interaction of Christianity and chemical sciences, which both seek to understand how the created world works and how that knowledge can be used for the benefit of all. Professor John Hedley Brook, who is the professor of science and religion in University of Oxford, former president of International Society for Science and Religion, he quoted one example, very interesting, how the religion changes the. He wrote, I was talking to somebody who was supervising some religion student who is constructing an experiment to test a hypothesis. As usual, in any experiment, we may get negative result. So he got it, but his supervisor said, you must do the experiment again. Something could easily have gone wrong. That is what every scientist will do. As Thomas Alva Edison, he failed in his attempt to find the electric bulb around 10,000 times. But even then, he didn't quit. He continued. So we are sitting in the light of electrical bulbs today. That is practiced by every scientist. But what is interesting is the lad declined to do so. He declined and he said, the God, their religion God, they has spoken in giving the negative result, and therefore to do the experiment again was somehow insulting to the God. So he said he don't want to repeat the experiment because God has given a negative result that shows he doesn't like it, that experiment. So it may not be typical, but it shows a very interesting examples of how religious and existential concerns they can at least influence the practice of science. So your religious beliefs may have impact on your scientific pursuit also. So let us speak something about the Hinduism. I based most of it. I should say that I am a compiler of various reports done by various people, and for this I depended on Dr. S. Radhakrishnan's The Hindu View of Life, published in 1927, almost 100 years ago. So you can think of it. What is Hinduism? For some, it's a museum of beliefs, a medley of rites, a geographical expression. Its content has altered from age to age, community to community. But here, I want to mention, recently we had a meeting in Nagpur, and Dr. Shankar Tatwadi sir, who is a very senior RSS functionary, and he gave a best example. If you travel in US from north to south or east to west, you will find almost the same people, whites or blacks or whatever it is, color, height, structure, and same food, same language. You will get bread, butter, toast, or whatever it is, pizza, burger, all these things. But when you travel from Kanyakumari to Srinagar or from Guwahati to Dwarka, you will find n number of varieties of people. Their dressing will be different, their color will be different, their structure will be different, their language will be different, their culture will be different. But still, you will feel the unity. You will not feel that you are in a different world. No. So that is what we mean as unity in diversity, what we feel in our country, in India. So what Dr. S. Radhakrishnan said, if there is not a unity of spirit binding its different expressions, and linking up the different periods of history into one organic whole, it will not be possible to account for the achievements of Hinduism. So Hinduism is an organic entity. It is not an inorganic thing. So that is what we will see in the coming presentations also. And it has stood the stress and strain of thousands of years of spiritual thought and experience. How it has come with so many medley of rites and museum of beliefs, we will discuss in the coming slides. The term Hindu had originally a territorial and not a creedal significance. It implied residence in a well-defined geographical area, and the differences among the sects of Hinduism are more or less on the surface, and the Hindus remain a distinct cultural unit with a common history, common literature, and common civilization. You can see, as I said, different people, different cultures, but still we all have common cultural units, common history, common beliefs, common procedures. They are on surface, they may be different, but in fact and in essence, all are same. We have unity. Vedas, the Hindu attitude to Vedas is one of trust tempered by criticism. It's very interesting. We have both trust and criticism. Both are inbuilt into the Hindu attitude. Trust because the belief and forms which helped our fathers are likely to be of use to us. So because it has tested the time of several thousands of years, so we believe that will help us also. And it will not stop us in criticizing. Criticism because however valuable the testimony of past ages may be, it cannot deprive the present age of its right to inquire and sift the evidence. So here lies the uniqueness of Hindu culture, where we allow even questioning of the Vedas, the very standard unit of Hinduism. So we allow the belief and also the criticism, and everyone is allowed to check the application of the issues defined. They never say to believe blindly. They say you discuss yourself. Once you feel satisfied, then you follow it. This is a unique feature of Hinduism across many religions in the world. And how it has grown into several branches, Hinduism. Radhakrishnanji, he said, if a tradition does not grow, it only means that its followers have become spiritually dead. A tradition has to keep on growing. How it has gone? Hinduism. The first impulse of progress came when the Vedic Aryans came to contact with the native tribes, and then a similar impulse contributed to the Protestant movements of Jainism and Buddhism when the Aryans moved into Ganges Valley, and contact with the highly civilized Dravidians led to the transformation of Vedism into a theistic religion. And the before last centuries, Brahmo Samaj and Arya Samaj are the outcome of contact with Western influences. So that also, they also came. You can see that the Brahmo Samaj and Arya Samaj, they started after the Western education and the British rule in the country. And yet, Hinduism not to be dismissed as a mere flow and strife of opinions, for it represents a steady growth of insight, since every form of Hinduism and every stage of its growth related to the common background of Vedanta. Whatever may be the sects, they all come to the same point of God and Vedas and Vedanta. So it is like the variety of pictures of God is easily intelligible when we realize that religious experience is psychologically mediated. So all are not so great rishis or sages that they can see the single form of the God. So as per our psychological needs, we frame our own gods and we see it. And this quotation is very important, says, God hideth himself. He will not expose himself totally. So it is our duty to find out God in various forms. And as I said at the beginning, like a blind people defining an elephant, we keep on trying to explore and find out God in various forms. And it is said, silence is more significant than speech regarding the depth of the divine. Silence that each individual has to find on their own by keeping silent. That may be the reason we call rishis and munis. Muni means mauni. Mauni means who follows maunam. That's silence. Silence. So man is a talking animal, like my dog is barking here, and he insists on interpreting the religious mystery in terms of his own experiences. We try to experience. I experience different form as Ramakrishna Paramahamsa seen God in the form of Dakshineswar Kali Mata, and he explains in that way. The human mind craves for something definite and limited, and so uses its resources for bringing down the supreme to the region of determined. So this Nirakara Swarup, God, we try to give a akara, sakara, and then we presume them in our own mind and we give a shape to them. And we cannot think of God without using our imagination. That's why there are different forms given to God. And every view of God from the primitive worship of nature represents some aspect or other of the relation of human to the divine spirit. So we know that in the primitive Vedic period, they used to worship the nature, the trees, the earth, the Vayudeva, Agni Deva, Varuna Deva, all these divine forces. And then we came to the worship of the idol worship, maybe Shiva or Vishnu, Venkateshwara or Saraswati, Hanuman, Ramchandra Vagair. All these we have given shape to our God. Each method of approach, each mode of address answers to some mood of the human mind. Not one of them gives the whole truth, though each of them is partially true. The anthropomorphic conception of the divine is relative to our needs. So nowadays there is a trend of do this Ashtotter Puja or Patri Puja or something, do Kalyanam to God, you will achieve all your needs. Like this. So we change our own perceptions as per our needs. But God exists for himself and not merely for us. Look upon God as an instrument for the advancement of human ends is to exaggerate our own importance. Thinking that the God is there, he replied to me and he helped me, all these things, they are not so valid because by bringing down the God to our own level and exaggerating our own importance. Swami Vivekananda has said, we believe not only in universal tolerance, but we accept all religions as true. Hinduism is well known for its universal tolerance, and it does not distinguish ideas of God as true or false. It never says God should exist only in this form, this is true and this is false. Because we feel God as a Sarvantaryami, Sarvavyapi. He is seen everywhere and in every moment, every part of the nature. The same God expresses itself at one stage as power, at another place as personality, and at a third as all comprehensive spirit. Whatever it may be, we feel it is God. The true seer, Swami, is gifted with a universality of outlook and a certain sensitiveness to the impulses and emotions which dominate the rich and varied human nature. The intellectual representations of the religious mystery are relative and symbolic. Each representation brings out different facets of the one central reality. This we have to understand. And Another important point for Hinduism is it did not regard it as its mission to convert humanity into any one opinion. We never force anyone to believe that Hindu God is the only God. No. For what counts is conduct, not belief. One should behave in a proper way. As I said, everyone should live in peace and harmony. Not only human beings, all the living beings, all the non-living beings, the today's Paryavaran Samrakshan, what we think, the entire universe is one unit and every part is interconnected and we think for that. Many tribes and races had mystic animals, and when the tribes entered the Hindu society, the animals which followed them were made vehicles and companions of gods. Image worship, which was a striking feature of Dravidian faith, was accepted by the Aryans. We see the tiger, elephant, peacock, and snakes. They all are part of our culture as gods are their representatives and we perform puja for them also because they are brought into the, when tribes were entered into the Hinduism, their gods at that time what they perform pujas, they were also brought into Hinduism. They were adopted as gods. And the Hindu method adopts not force and threat, but suggestion and persuasion. You can see this behavior in Bhagavad Gita also. It is said when Arjuna was not interested in fighting, Krishna has not given any threat or so. He has advised him. It is like a counseling. So Bhagavad Gita is a counseling and he suggested and persuaded Arjuna to go for the war. So that is the Hindu philosophy. It considers error as a sign of immaturity, but not as a grievous sin. So if anyone commits any mistake or error, it was treated as a immaturity only, not as a sin, and there was no threat of that you will be punished so and so like that. The Hindu method of religious reform helps to bring about a change not in the name but in the content. That is more important. And every god accepted by Hinduism is elevated and ultimately identified with the central reality, which is one with the deeper self of man. And we don't make any mistake in the tolerance with indifference. Tolerance is different and indifference is different. Indifference is we won't take at all. Whereas tolerance comes with your internal strength. When you are capable, even then you tolerate, then only it shows as tolerance. Okay? Hinduism and science, while Carl Sagan once called Hinduism is the only religion whose time scale for the universe matches the billions of years documented by modern science. So our time scale is matching with the modern science research. And Colonel James Todd in the British East India Company, he said, in India, where else can we look for sages like those whose systems of philosophy were prototypes to whose works Plato, Thames, and Pythagoras were disciples? So these are the opinions by the outsiders who observed, studied the Hindu science, and they made these comments. The science called Hinduism is founded on a set of spiritual texts known as Vedas, and Rishis are spiritual scientists. They are scientists of very high order. Without use of modern equipment, they were able to discover a colossal amount of information about nature, and which is in the form of books also. However, the major difference between an ancient scientist and a modern scientist is they did not use any of the knowledge they possessed for personal benefits. Nowadays, we are more interested into research publication and patents so that we can get more and more personal recognition. There is use for the society also, but now the focus is more into majority of the scientists, they are into this personal benefit. Whereas on the contrary, the ancient rishis are for social benefit. They used it in order to create a perfect society in which human beings could live in comfort and harmony with each other and with the nature. And here are some of the ancient Rishis like Susruta. He wrote Susruta Samhita. It described over 300 surgical procedures and 125 surgical instruments. It will be interesting to know that he described a number of stitching methods using of horse's hair as thread and fibers of bark as needles. And Charaka written Charaka Samhita, and he explained the medicinal qualities of around 1 lakh herbal plants. Aryabhatta is the author of Aryabhattiyam, who was the first to proclaim in earth that earth is round. Bhugola. We know that in all our spiritual books, religious books, we call as Bhugola only. Whereas in Western countries, they think that it was flat. And it rotates on its axis, orbits the sun, and is suspended in space, calculated the value of pi also, Aryabhatta. So as it said, it is heliocentric, which the earlier ones, they have done it. And in 825 CE, Arab mathematician Muhammad ibn Musa credited the value of pi to the Indians by stating, this value has been given by Hindus. And Kanada, he found of atomic theory, he said, every object of creation is made of atoms, which in turn connect with each other to form molecules. Bhaskaracharya, he was born in Jalgaon district of Maharashtra. He calculated the time taken by Earth to orbit Sun as 365.25875 days. And Nagarjuna is born in Baluka in Madhya Pradesh, contributed in chemistry and metallurgy. He was the Chancellor of University of Nalanda. And similarly, Sridharacharya in 11th century gave quadratic equations. Similarly, algebra, trigonometry, and calculus, they also originated from India. And their knowledge was not just theoretical, but was applied to every aspect of human life. It was not only a theoretical knowledge, it was applied to everyday human life of the individuals. Since food is basic requirement of life, in agriculture, they produced new seeds, fruits, roots, spices, and gave them to people. And they also taught physical postures which would increase both spiritual and physical health, known as yogasanas. And yet, the amazing thing is that they were totally without ego and they never claimed ownership for any of their discoveries. And there are many other creatures in this universe, and all of them have an equal right to enjoy this multifarious universe. Whereas in this 21st century, 20th and 21st century, we became more materialistic and we feel everything is for the enjoyment of the human beings. So we explore the universe, the earth everywhere, and that is the problem with us. But in our ancient Hindu culture, everything has a place and value in the universe. We think Vasudha Eka Kutumbakam, Vasudha Eka Kutumbakam. It is one family of the entire earth. And all these knowledge, they have transmitted in the coded words. Like I said, if you have a mobile phone, we don't know. We see only the phone symbol and we click it. When we got a call, we touch it and we get the call connected. We are not bothered what was the theory behind it, what was the practicals, and what was the technology involved in it. So similarly, they have converted a average human being is not much capable to understand all the theory behind it. So many of them are given as customs and culture in our society. Like turmeric, haldi is used in a daily day-to-day life as a bacterial and antibacterial and antifungus. But we may not know the rules, but it was a scientific invention made into as a convention in the system. But nowadays, we are more into arguments rather than a systematic study. And they recognize, another important point is they recognize the power of sound. Nowadays, we have locks and lights, everything. By our voice, they are open. So sound is the softest and yet the powerful form of energy. The Rishis were experts in the science of phonetics. Mantras are the product of their research into the science of sounds. So it may need further research, the phonetics and mantras. And Fritjof Capra, in an interview, he revealed that he had a discussion with Heisenberg long back in 1915 or so. And Heisenberg was frequent visitor to India and discussed with Hindu philosophy. When he had discussions with Tagore and Indian philosophy, Heisenberg himself told that all these new ideas in quantum physics were in fact not all that crazy. He realized there was, in fact, a whole culture that subscribed to very similar ideas. So the quantum mechanics of Heisenberg, they were studied in Indian philosophy, Indian Hinduism, but it was not transmitted to us to a very limited level only, it was stopped. Now coming to the next point of ancient Hindu chemistry, I depended most on the Prafulla Chandra Ray, the father of modern Indian chemistry in India. He wrote a book on history of Hindu chemistry and it was published in 1902, 1904. And some points I share it. In about 8th century CE, the term Rasayana, from that the Rasayana first appeared in Hindu Buddhist Tantric texts. Where at that time, the most studied chemical was mercury, which is named as Rasa. So accordingly, the name Rasayana came. And the Indian alchemy, the dual goal was one is Dhatuvada and the other one is Dehavada. That means the Dhatuvada is for transmutation of base metal into gold, what we call as Parasvedi, and the production of elixirs of immortality. They wanted a immortality for the human being. So the most of the study was for these two objectives. And Nagarjuna was seen as inventor of distillation and calcination. The knowledge in practical chemistry prevalent in 12th and 13th century AD and perhaps earlier, as seen in Rasarnava and others, is distinctly in advance of same period of Europe. And as I said, Canada studied widely the properties of matter. Material substances are by Canada considered to be primarily atoms and secondarily aggregates. And what he said was, when we pursue the items indefinitely, there would be no difference of magnitude between a mustard seed and a mountain, each alike containing an infinity of particles. They were the atoms. And no less important is his statement that light and heat are only different forms of the same essential substance. So which is also very important. And later it was invented in the Western countries. And they referred about gravity also. Gravity is the peculiar cause of primary descent or fall. And they mentioned when it doesn't fall also. In the absence of a countervailing cause as addition, velocity or some act of volition, descent results from this quality. So if there is addition, for example, like coconut, why coconut is not falling? So they said that because it was by addition of the footstock, so it is not falling. Here one point comes that according to Udayana Acharya, gravity is imperceptible but to be inferred from the act of falling. You cannot see gravity directly, you cannot measure it, but it is to be inferred from the act of falling only. And flame photometry was also there in the ancient Hindu chemistry. The color of flames as a diagnostic test of metals was well understood. And coming to the next point of dark age or vacuum, how it is created, let me share some points. I depended most on this an era of darkness by Shashi Tharoor. The British invasion started in 1600 company by giving permission to East India Company by the Queen Elizabeth I in 1600 to trade in silk and spices and other profitable Indian commodities. But what was the Indian condition in 1916 and in 1600? India that British East India Company conquered was no primitive or barren land, but the glittering jewel of medieval world. It was like a glittering jewel. J.T. Sunderland wrote, India was a far greater industrial and manufacturing nation than any Europe or any other in Asia. Had textile goods, cotton, wool, linen, silk. They were famous over the civilized world. Jewelry, precious stones, pottery, porcelain, architecture, merchants, shipbuilding. In all these points, India was far ahead of all the other countries at that time. And at the beginning of the 18th century, it was reported India's share of world economy was 23%, as large as all the Europe put together at that time. But by the time British departed India, it dropped to only 3%. And when Nadir Shah looted Delhi in 1739, he burnt it, Delhi for over 8 long weeks, and 50,000 corpses littered all over the streets, and gold, silver, jewelry of around 500 million rupees of that time, they were seized. And it is said that with the loot from India, there was a tax holiday in Persia for 3 years. You can think of the tax holidays nowadays we get in the country for different new initiatives. It is said between 1665 and 1815, British extracted from India approximately 18 million pounds every year. So we can see how rich the Indian culture was, how the flourishing the each individual in the country. But what happened next? Let us see. Just I want to make a comparison. It is said that in 1626, a Dutch governor purchased New York, the entire New York City, for $24 from local Indians. But as a comparison, Pitt, the governor, he acquired in 1702 a Pitt's diamond for 24,000 pounds and sold it in UK for 1,35,000 pounds and resigned from the governorship because he got earned a lot of money for himself. You can see the comparison, how the India was rich at that time and how it was brought to the present stage. It is said British Industrial Revolution started with the deindustrialization of India. Like the manufacturing industries were closed, they destroyed the textile competition from India by very cruel methods like breaking the thumbs of the weavers so that they cannot do their work and imposing huge taxes for Indian yarn and silk to be imported into UK and relaxing all taxes for those mill-produced items into India without any taxes. So it has happened. That's why it is said deindustrialization of India was made to facilitate the industrialization of UK at that time. The East India Company, for the first time in Indian history, created landless peasants deprived of their traditional sources. Then we have a doubt how they are sustaining. Traditionally, the Indian rulers in the past had largely funded their regimes not from taxing cultivators, but from tapping into networks of trade, both regional and global. And education system also, they have spoiled and entirely buried the entire education system because Nalanda University, which enjoyed international renown, employed 2,000 teachers and housed 10,000 students. It is said that monks would have hand copy documents and books, which would then become collections of individual scholars, I should say. But this presentation also, I noted all the points from all these books and made a hand copy of the documents for the important points. And Huan Sang, he studied in the university and then taught there for 5 years. We had foreign teachers also in the universities. The Hindu system was so acceptable. It has so tolerance and it has allowed foreigners also because it says the knowledge is to be spread. And William Durant wrote, when the British came, there was thought of throughout India a system of communal schools managed by village communities. The agents of East India Company destroyed these village communities and took no steps to replace the schools. They have closed the schools, but they have not taken any replacing steps. English language, people think that English language was a gift by British, but their intention was not for benefiting the country. They believed that introduction of Western education to Christianity would transform a morally decadent society. The another idea was teaching Sanskrit or Arabic to Indians was not going to be of much practical use to the business of company, but Indians who could read and write English, it could be indeed be of value to the British. So they introduced, and mass education was also not their plan. Indian history was also redrafted with British perspective. The British saw pre-colonial Mughal history as consisting of a linear narration of events and a divide of context or analysis. So it was a simple events narration which they don't think they are valid. So the John Stuart Mill dismissed them as mythological histories where fable stands in the face of facts. So to replace these versions, the British reconstructed factual accounts of Indian historiography and adding more contextual analysis in a structured European style, but with the teleological purpose of serving to legitimize British rule. So they redrafted entire Indian history with their British perspective. And also, by arguing that history texts should rely upon facts and serve a secular curriculum, they also moved away from the teaching of religious and mythological texts, including India's timeless epics, Mahabharata and Ramayana. So this is also a great harm they have done. Even Mughals might not have touched the Hindu ethics of Mahabharata and Ramayana in the schools. British have stopped it, thinking that they should start a secular curriculum. And the problem is, even today, we continue that British legacy of secular curriculum, and we keep on moving on in this direction. So, accordingly, the history was also reconstructed Anglo-centric. Thus, the flow of great culture and its values were severely hindered or stopped, and a vacuum created. And so that's why we could not continue our Hindu traditions into our daily life. Wherever they are continued, but they are forcibly and intentionally stopped and hindered by the government at that time. And let us see some of my thoughts on the spirit of Hinduism. It is true that the verses of Vedas are symbolic in nature and require high level of intelligence and interpretation. As I said, as if we say God as Nirakara, no one may not be able to follow it. If I say God is like Shiva, God is like Krishna, God is like Vishnu, God is like Venkateshwara, people will believe because they have a mind. All may not be that much highly intellectual in understanding. So that's why the sacred scriptures make the life of the spirit real even to those who are incapable of insight. Someone listens to Ramayana or Mahabharata or Bhagavad, they will understand the to their level it comes and they can follow it. So men in the rough and tumble of life with their problems and perplexities, sins and sorrows have no patience for balanced arguments or sustained meditation. But they want some formula or a rule of life which they can accept as valid. So though they are inducted into a new way of life, a living tradition influences our inner faculties, humanizes our nature, and lifts us to a higher level. One should recognize the fact that God has never finished the revelation of his wisdom and love. He gives only hints, so we have to catch them. As millions of people might have seen apples falling from the trees, but only the Isaac Newton has observed why it has fallen. So similarly, Archimedes, he was thinking, and when he was taking bath only, he came to understand a philosophy, it made it clear to him. And so all these are the wishes of the God to teach us, to reveal his wisdom and love. And sometimes it is accidental also. I was, while doing research in Andhra University, we were told at some time there was no power in the lab. So they are conducting experiments outside in the sunlight. They observed that the reactions are fast when they are doing in the sunlight rather than when they are doing in the inside the lab. That led to a series of photocatalyzed reactions, and they made number of publications from that activity. So we don't know when it comes out to us. The God will give a hint of to reveal his wisdom and love. Besides our interpretation of religious experience, it must be in conformity with the findings of science. That is the Hinduic principle. The Hindu philosophy of religion starts from and returns to an experimental basis. As I said, we allow obedient following of Vedas, and I also Hinduism allows questioning of the Vedas by the individuals, and we follow everything and we accept all of them. Only this basis is as wide as human nature itself. Perhaps that may be the reason Hinduism has wide variety of activities, wide variety of everything. And being a chemist sees chemistry everywhere. You can see a roadside barrier. The upper one is single line, second one is 2 lines, and third one is 3 lines. So there is a bonding. Any chemist will know single bond is called as alkane, double bond is seen as alkene, and triple bond is seen as alkyne. So a chemist sees chemistry everywhere, and this attempt is in this direction. I see, and let us think of some of the points. Jivatma and Paramatma. This is a concept in Hinduism, and as I said, chemistry has both spiritual and material aspects. At the level of atom and subatomic particles, all forms of physical matter are ultimately composed of the same constituents. Whether it is human body or a stone, everything has atoms. These particles behave like lives, and the distribution between organic and inorganic compounds disappear at the level of atoms. So whether it is a living thing or non-living thing, everything is consisting of atoms, and that is what we feel as Jivatma, and the ultimate soul is same. That is Jivatma and Paramatma. And we say the same Andapinda Brahmanda. The God is all pervasive in Andapinda Brahmanda. That means from small egg to the Brahmanda universe, it is God is present. Like atoms, as I said just now, that there is no difference whether it is Anda, Pinda, or Brahmanda. Everywhere it is consisting of the atom, the basic units. So we can think it as the principle involved. And now coming to Shiva and Parvati and nuclear and electronic energy. Lord Shiva is represented as Sthanu, stable, and Ma Parvati as Brahmara, revolving. I believe it represents a coded atomic structure. We have in an atomic structure, we have a stable nucleus with protons and neutrons and revolving electrons, which are responsible for electrical energy and all chemical reactions. All the visible reactions are through electrons. And Brahmara, Ma Parvati is identified with Shakti, energy, and maybe electrical or chemical energy. And nuclear energy, we know that the devastating power of the nuclear energy, and it is explained in scriptures when Lord Shiva, he doesn't get angry, and if he opens his third eye, then it will be a pralayam, or what we feel as maybe a nuclear explosion. So we can see a similarity between Shiva and Parvati as nuclear and electronic energy are the atomic structure. And there is another interesting thing, Vali, Sugriva, and then isomers, connectivity. In Ramayana, we come across Vali and Sugriva, who are brothers with identical features, but with different character. In chemistry also, we find similarity where there are molecules with similar chemical formula, but they are with different properties. You can see Vali and Sugriva, they are fighting. We know that it was reported the Vali was with negative thinking and he was like a demonic feelings and he displaced Sugriva. Then Rama helped in killing Vali and giving justice to Sugriva. So you can see both are same structure, but they have different properties. Similarly, you can see two, here it is diamine dichloroplatinum 2. Formula is same, PT NH3 twice Cl2. But if you see, they have the same structure. Like in the structure left side, you can see both the Cl, that means chlorine atoms are same side of the platinum. Whereas in the right side, it is on the opposite sides. So left side we call as cisplatin and right side it is called transplatin. They are like, we can relate it to our Vastu Shastra where we say in Ishanya, we have to keep our guard and all these things, east facing and all these things what we say. Here also the place makes an importance. The left side molecule was an anti-cancer drug and right side molecule has a toxic property. Here also like Vali and Sugriva, they are similar this molecule is inhalational anesthetic, it is used. Whereas the right side, one fluorine shifts to the other carbon and bromine comes to the first carbon. It is called 1-bromo, 2-chloro, 1,1,2 trifluoroethane. It is a toxic element. You can see the Vastu for the molecules also. What I mean to say is there should be a scientific thorough study. Simply listening, these are Moda Vishwasa or blind following. We should not say that. There should be more detailed studies into these activities. As we see Saptalokas and Saptaswaras, etc., in Hindu culture, we have 7 groups in chemistry in the periodic table. There are 7 groups. 8th group is inert group. And similarly, this is more philosophical. I believe it that there is a sloka in Bhajigovinda sloka by Shankaracharya. Satsangatve nissangatvam, nissangatve nirmohatvam, nirmohatve nischalatatvam, nischalatatve jivan mukti. That means when you go into the satsang within the combination of good people, you will go to nissangatvam. You don't have any attachments. Then nissangatve nirmohatvam. You don't have any liking for others. And nirmohatve nischala tattvam. You will get stabilized. And nischala tattve to jivan mukti. And I relate it to the chemical bonding. I believe entire chemical bonding follows this principle. Every chemical species tries to find a suitable partner. And like a species with less electrons will find another species with excess electrons. And different bonds like ionic bond, covalent bond, coordinate bond, all these are resultant of this nature only. And all bonds try to reach stability and inert gas configuration. After that, they become nischal tattvam, they become stable, what I said above. So this is a way of thinking the satsangat way to chemical bonding. And Dvaita and Advaita and uncertainty principle. Dvaita and Advaita is the dichotomy of whether Jivatma and Paramatma are one and the same or different. And Advaita propounds that world is illusion, soul and God are one. We have an interesting example by Shankaracharya. When he was visiting Kashi, Lord Shiva comes in the form of an untouchable. When Shankaracharya's Sishyas, they say, go away, then the Shankara, the Lord Shiva comes to the Shankara and asks him whether you are telling to move away either this body or the Atma which is present inside. Then the Shankaracharya came to understand the Advaita philosophy of the thing, and he realized the Advaita. And Dvaita was, it profounds that the world is real. There is natural difference between soul and God. So there was a dichotomy, it goes on. And there is a Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, which states about wave and particle nature of the matter also. And as I said earlier, the Heisenberg said that these principles, they are already present in the Hindu culture. And earlier, when Swami Dr. Radhakrishnan said, Aryan Dravidian culture, they led to a distinctive culture. They are not as a separate cultures. They clubbed into one and they made into a single entity. Like chemical reactions, any chemical reactions leads to a new product, not a physical mixture. So here, this is a small attempt to view some aspects of Hinduism through chemist's eye, and because it needs, if it is in European chemistry, there was a continuous flow from 16th century to today. There was no break. But for Hinduism, there was a break or vacuum created by the colonial rule. That's why I dealt upon these points also in my presentation. And I hope you enjoyed it. This is a small attempt by me to see some of the Hinduism principles through chemist's eye. And it is like a blind man trying to describe an elephant. And I tried to do it. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Sivaswaroop garu. It was a great talk. I mean, I don't know if it's the seeing the elephant from a blind eye perspective, but I'm pretty sure it is. It was a great view from the chemist perspective. I think that is definitely the case. I mean, it was great to see how you have laid the foundation of like connections between science and religion. And a lot of us in the new modern times kind of lose that perspective, and also like some of the research that has happened from our ancient times. I mean, the examples you have given on Susruta Samhita, as well as some of the work done by Kanada Maharshi and so on. Actually, our Guruji, Dr. Vedavyas, has, I'm not sure if you've seen, but he has written a book called Vedic Sciences, What Are They? And he has also highlighted some of the work done, as well as he has given a huge list of references of all the rishis and the work they have done.
I will get it.
Take it further. I'll definitely share that with you. I'm not seeing any questions from the live audience, but I had one question I wanted to ask you, which was like, in terms of IGNOU and some of the work being done, are there any aspects of what you've covered today being taken up in terms of like bringing out some of this work in a broader sort of way? Anything you want to highlight?
You mean in our university?
Yeah, in your university.
Not at present. Not
Okay.
at present.
Got it. So definitely,
out of my own interest, I have developed these things.
Got it. But some of these are really interesting aspects. I'm hoping like some of the universities and all can take it up as well, because at least one of the things we are trying to do at Rishivatika, I mean, through International Institute of Vedic Sciences, is to actually bring these things out to the more modern society. Because I mean, as we can establish some of these connections between the science as it is today to what has happened, then people will go beyond, I think, the notion of religion, right? Because a lot of times we get stuck at the notion of religion and don't look at things past
That's
that.
what.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So definitely would like to collaborate with you further on that aspect.
Definitely. Now we started thinking in to reconnect our past. So there is more scope for what I said is It need not be a blind following. We can have a scientific exploration, and then we can connect them to the present day society.
Absolutely.
That is what I want to.
Absolutely.
As
Yeah, I would once
recently,
again. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Recently, we had Sankranti or Pongal or Makar Sankranti. At that time, we have a tradition of flying kites, and that indicates, it is said that nowadays there is more D vitamin deficiency, and it is simply said that the only solution is to have sun rays exposing to the sun, sit in the sun rays. And if you remember, in our olden days, we used to have that tilka tail, gingerly oil applied to the body and sitting in the sun rays or playing outside.
Right.
And that itself was inbuilt D vitamin supply to the human beings. But nowadays we stopped that. That is what I said, the codified customs, they are built into our living systems, but slowly we are moving away, and there is a need to study all those things and bring them back into the natural daily living.
Absolutely. I think, as you said, right, a lot of the principles that have been identified and invented, they've been codified or like converted into like daily sort of things to do, right? And somehow we lost that whole tradition. And hopefully we can bring that all those things back so people can. Yeah, definitely. I would like to once again thank you for your time today. I would like to also thank all the audience who has joined us live on the Vishwatika YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the channel in case you have not. And there are future talks so that you get notified on the future talks as part of this series. Thanks, everyone.